Hi, Judy Todd just joined the call.
Hi, Judy. So, yes, so as I was saying, Earth Ambassadors started about 3 years ago, and it was a one-year experiment, and we want to restart it again. Judy, who just joined us and just spoke up, she was one of the creators of this and one of the major stewards of it for that year. And it's a way of supporting people in your communities who are dedicated to radical joy for hard times and the practice of finding and making beauty in wounded places, who want to perpetuate this work in your communities through regular practices, not just a 1 year or twice a year kind of activity that we might do as a whole group with Radical Joy for Hard Times. And it's also a way of recognizing people who have been active and who are really seeking for ways to bring their communities together in ways to make beauty for wounded places, so that they have a way of coming together and sharing ideas, frustrations, visions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we tried this for a year, and we had some difficulties. Primarily, we had technological difficulties, which caused a lot of problems. But we are pretty sure we've solved most of those by now. So it's great to see several people here. Some we know, and some we don't know. And I'm going. The facilitation of this particular meeting is going to be with Joanne Martin, who's an active member of Radical Joy for Hard Times and a board chair currently. So, Joanne, do you want to say a little bit now?
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Joanne Martin, and I have been with, formerly as a board member of Radical Joy for 1 year, but I've been doing Global Earth Exchanges and really been part of the Radical Joy family probably for 6 years now. And I was part of the 1 year Earth Ambassador trial. So I'm here today to share a little bit and kind of facilitate some thoughts and questions and brainstorming and some visioning that we can do going forward. So Trevi, do you want to, you're going to go through the introductions now?
Yeah, let's introduce ourselves. I think there are 7 of us on the call at this point, and since we see each other sort of as blocks on the screen, and it's a little hard to know in which order to go. Let's just I'm going to ask Judy Todd to speak first because she's already had experience with the Earth Ambassadors. So let's introduce ourselves by saying your name and saying where you're from, and if you have had experience with the Earth Exchange, just like a sentence or two. I mean, with the Earth Ambassadors, if you have had experience with the Earth Ambassadors, just a sentence or two about what that was like and why you're back. And if you haven't had experience with the Earth Ambassadors, what called you to this meeting today? So I'm going to start off by asking Judy if you would start.
Sure, Trevi, I'm glad to. Judy Todd here. I'm in Portland, Oregon this morning, just on my way to go birding up in the north end of the where the rivers come together, the Columbia and the Willamette. So this is my home base, and as Trevi mentioned, I was a part of the Earth Ambassadors inaugural year, and in that year we really experimented with connecting all the interested parties via the internet, phone calls, or whatever way seemed possible. Given that we're across the country, sometimes that brings its own challenges. But part of it was to really deepen our understanding of what is the radical joy part of the work we do, and what is the hard times part of the work we do, and how might that be expressed? So I've been interested in participating in Earth Exchanges sometimes just throughout the year, and certainly the annual June event over Solstice Weekend, because I think it is useful to myself and to the community that I'm involved with, that time wherever I am. And I think sometimes spontaneously it's really useful because we come across a wounded place, a wounded community, all kinds of things that give us an opportunity to practice that, taking a moment to really be with and then to honor the place that we are finding ourselves in. So I've been participating since, I think, the very beginning, and it's definitely developed my own practice elsewhere in my life. I think that's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Let's go to Karen Wolf.
Hi, I'm Karen Wolf. Polly Howells invited me here, and I live in Phoenicia, New York, in the Catskill Mountains. Been involved with environmental work for a very long time, and I also have done ceremonies similar to what you do, work similar to what you do in healing places and people that have been wounded in the environment and by the environment. I did a couple of ceremonies at Cooper Lake, which was threatened by Niagara Bottling Company. They were going to come take our water. And various ceremonies around the area in different places that have been threatened, small and large. And I looked at the material Polly sent me, and I love what you're doing. I think it's a great idea because environmental work can get very challenging. And to bring joy into it and to bring ceremony and celebration into it, I think is a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, I can only stay with you until 12:30 today. I have another meeting, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We're so happy you're here too. And if you have to leave, be sure and email me trebbyjohnson@gmail.com and give me your email address so we can keep in touch with you and so you'll know about the next steps. And thank you so much for coming.
Okay, thank you.
So now let's go to Harriet Locke, because she has to go in a little bit as well.
Hi everybody. I'm in County Durham in the UK. It's a very rural place. I've been doing Global Earth Exchanges, I think, for about 6 or 7 years now, and I was an ambassador a while ago. And sort of a bit like what Judy was saying, it's given me a chance to try a few different things and to sort of hone in what's the best approach and the best way to sort of have a big event, and then how the small sort of impromptu things have sort of just cropped up over the years as well. And I've come to learn that I get really deeply significant experiences, and groups really understand and really appreciate the connection to our landscaped heritage, and my background's in archaeology, so I can take people to places that are very ancient already in the land. And also working with children has been a really fantastic element to this that I did a couple of years, and I just feel that it really adds to the spontaneity of it and to the sense of joy, and also you can be really quite straightforward with the way that I explain things to kids about what's wounded about a certain place and what we can do to make it feel better. And so yeah, I've just really cherished having those moments of mindfulness of connection and bringing up people along with it. And I'm just really looking forward to keep going and keep adventuring along this. So it's just absolutely wonderful to be invited back again. So that's me.
Thank you. So glad you're here. So there is a telephone icon on the screen with the area code 503. Who's that? Hello.
That's Judy.
Is that Judy?
Debbie, that's me, Judy.
Oh, somebody else was here and left. So let's hear from Janet Keating. Hi, Janet. Glad you could be here.
Hi. Yeah, this is a nice opportunity. So I'm from Huntington, West Virginia, and at the end of September, recently retired from an organization that I've been with for 24 years, the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. And we had a wonderful experience doing the ground beneath our hearts with Trebi. And I've recently, very recently, just got back from a vision quest in Death Valley.
Oh.
And I'm taking, with School of Lost Borders. So I'm trying to figure out what's next. And so I'm looking at various opportunities. I have a new grandson, and I wasn't able to actually participate in the event that our organization helped organize around mountain top removal coal mining in central Appalachia, but heard only good things. So curiosity brings me to this call, and I'm kind of at a place where joy is really important, and more of that. I want more of that, and I think more people need more of that. So, yeah, and certainly we have enough wounded places here. Whew. So that's me.
Thank you, Janet. Welcome. I'm so glad you could make it.
Thanks.
So, Nan Colley, hi.
Hi, Trevi. Hi, Judy. So I missed the very beginning.
Hi, Nan.
Hi. I'm sorry to say, but I gather we're just sort of talking about what our interests are.
Yeah, just the invitation was to say your name and where you're from, and if you had connection with the Earth Ambassadors before, just say a couple sentences about that. And if you hadn't, what draws you to this particular this call and this group?
Okay, I'm Nan Colley, and I'm in Portland, Oregon. And I just love the planet. Judy and I call us tree sisters, and we both share a love, really all our lives, of the earth and everything on it. And I'm a musician, and I've written songs, honoring and loving this earth, and particularly trees. So I just have felt this deep, deep passion. I lived out in the country on 20 acres of forest land, and there was a horrible clear cut across the valley, and then actually right next to my home. And Judy brought people out for a global earth exchange, and I was so incredibly grateful and moved by that whole celebration, acknowledging the loss, and still loving that land, in the midst of the wounds. And it was a heartbreak, and it was such a relief to have a group of people come and honor the land and walk it with me, and sing and cry and drum and pray and all the things we do, and plant more trees. So I've just been deeply moved by what I know of the organization. I wasn't able to come to the local Global Earth Exchange last year, but I just walked up onto this beautiful hill, a park. It's up above us, and there are trees up there I love, and I just love it up there, and did my own. And that was touching too. I think probably everyone here does their own honoring of the earth and the land on a day-to-day basis. We have a new granddaughter, and I put her in a little front pack and carry her around, and she always has a hand out, and we just lean her in to touch leaves, and her head snaps when she hears birds, and she's and it's making me realize even more how crucial it is, what kind of a planet we're leaving for the next generations. And I am so loving getting her out and outside, and she'll stay out there as long as I will. She's only 9 months old. So I just, have a lot of connections to the earth itself, and wanting more ways to actively, especially in these political times, it's just crucial that we do all that we can in light of who's heading the EPA and, all the changes that are happening. So I'm on board, and whatever I can do, I'm very much wanting to be more involved and actively participate in helping things along.
Thank you, Nan.
Mm-hmm.
Nan has also written a wonderful song called Radical Joy for Hard Times, which one of these days we're going to be widely distributing around the world.
We are. We just have to get it recorded.
Yeah. So don't forget, after you've spoken, to mute your phones, mute your thing with the little microphone down at the bottom. Tom Debris, hello. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your experience with the Earth Ambassadors?
Sure, briefly. Ms. Travis, my name is Tom Debris. I happen to be on the band, the board for Radical Joy for Hard Times the last 2 years. And I'm, the Earth Ambassadors are, to me, some of the most inspiring on-the-ground activists who are practicing in their unique ways, in their own places they love, what I understand is the practice of radical joy. And so the partnership and development of the radical joy practice throughout the world is so much dependent upon our understanding how can we partner, how can we help, how can we be supportive, and what can we learn from the Earth Ambassadors and what they're doing and how they're living, what they observe and see, and what suggestions they have. So my experience has been in meeting Earth Ambassadors and in listening to some of the original efforts and initiatives that were taken to hold some forums and conversations over a year or two, which took place, and they were wonderful, and they kind of prompted the notion that how do we build this network even more deeply? How do we do that? So my experience is one as a learner from the Earth Ambassadors and as a person within the organization who wants to facilitate the deepening of those partnerships.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm glad to meet everybody, and I know there were several other people that had wanted to be here but couldn't make it or forgot or who knows what, but there will be more of us. And as we said, this is an introductory call only, and we want to know what you're thinking about. So, Joanne, you have some questions to pose.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Again, now that I've met everybody, it feels a little bit different to speak with you. So briefly, let me just, part of what we wanted to do in calling this initial gathering together was to hear from all of you and co-create this. As we go forward in looking at how the Earth Ambassadors are going to support each of us individually and then support us in our communities and support Radical Joy for Hard Times and Radical Joy for Hard Times supporting Earth Ambassadors. We really wanted to know from each of you, because we all have unique situations in our communities. We all have unique challenges. We all have individual passions. We probably have one and many more shared ones. So that's part of what this little segment is just to ask a few questions. And I think I have 3 questions that we kind of put together, Trevi and I, and maybe we'll do one at a time and do quick circles. Karen, I'm wondering maybe if we start with you or Harriet. I know that the two of you said that you had to leave. So the first question that we were thinking that we'd like to hear from you on is, in your community, what are you yearning for? Is there an issue or a challenge or something that you're passionate about that you would like to influence? Or, I use the word influence broadly. Maybe you want to heal something, maybe you want to transform something, maybe you want to immerse yourself in some way. So that's, can we start there? And Karen, are you comfortable starting with that?
Sure.
Great.
In my community, I live in Catskill Mountains in the watershed area that supplies water to New York City. And the DEP from New York City has a lot of control up here. And one of the things that's been breaking my heart is that they had been clear-cutting forests around here, around the reservoir. They had a problem with the emerald ash borer, and their solution to getting rid of the emerald ash borer is to cut down all of the ash trees. And not only are they cutting down the ash trees, but they're cutting down a lot of other trees. And it breaks my heart every time I drive through these areas and I see all these trees piled up on the ground dead. On top of that, we are right by the Hudson River. We have bomb trains coming up and down from Albany to New Jersey carrying crude oil. We have the Pilgrim Pipeline trying to get in here now and rip up the earth and put a big oil pipeline down again from Albany, New Jersey. So there are quite a few areas that need to be healed. Besides the Hudson River itself, which despite all the remediation that's been done, still needs a lot of work. So we've been doing regular ceremonies at the Hudson River with a group that I belong to. And it's some of the other local waterways around here that have been threatened by tourism and tourists who don't know how to honor the earth. And one of the things that we did do besides doing ceremony at a place called the Blue Hole, which was unfortunately listed as one of the 10 best swimming holes in America, and is now one of the 10 most wrecked swimming holes in America. We would go down and we would talk to the people who were hanging out there and explain to them the importance of this place and the water supply, and try to educate people about preserving what's been given to us. So there's a lot of work to do up here.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Many people talk about the broken heart, and so that really kind of grabbed me when you said that. Yeah.
I actually cry when I drive through those areas. I've been trying to avoid them as much as I can.
Harriet, I was wanting to invite you to speak next because I know you have to leave us as well, I think Trevi said.
Yeah, I will at just after past, but sorry, I've got a little hungry baby here as well. Yes, I've just jotted down 7 things in the sort of 80-mile radius from here, and some of them are the ash dieback fungus is a concern. It's a national concern actually. So that's in this area because there's a lot of deforestation already happened. But what are beautiful on the skyline and in the hedgerows are these just magnificent ash trees that really represent, just are so important to this area. And just a second, all right, this time then that's fine. But really quite urgently is just in the next county is fracking has been agreed by the district council, by Rydale District Council. And they were outvoted. I think it was 3 councillors decided to take it through, and there's been a big sort of legal challenge to them. So they lost the legal challenge, and so fracking is potentially on the table there, and that's a really big significant problem. And there's land protectors. They've taken from Standing Rock and really tried to make a peaceful protest. So that's a really significant thing. So currently as it is there's a good few things that are smaller scale that are in the immediate vicinity, like the extension of a GlaxoSmithKline factory in the actual town in Barnard Castle, and the pollution, the contaminants, all that sort of stuff, as well as the deforestation and the sort of the raising of that land. So there are a lot of things potentially that need looking at in the area, and we've got a juniper fungal infection up in the uplands, and I did an earth exchange there. Oops, sorry. I did a. He likes standing up, so I'll stand up. I did an earth exchange at the juniper 2 years ago, but that's an ongoing concern. So it's quite a few issues really. Right, I'll mute myself again now.
Okay, thank you, Harriet. Janet, why don't we Janet Keating? Why don't we invite Janet to share? If there's something in particular that you're yearning for in your community or passionate about that you want to mention and say and share with us. You're muted, Janet. You will have to unmute yourself, bottom left of the screen.
There we go.
There you go.
So mountaintop, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So mountaintop removal is continuing in the southern part of West Virginia, and all the horrendous impacts on people and communities there. And also now we're pretty much ground zero in the northern part of the state and a little and north central part of the state with fracking pipelines and all the infrastructure that goes along with that. And I think my big concern, and I think a lot of people's big concern is the water in the southern part of the state has already been despoiled, and now with fracking of the Utica and Marcellus and the Rogersville Shale and all the pipelines, great concern about what's going to happen to our water, because we've learned pretty rapidly how important that is to all of us. So, I mean, I would like to wrap the idea around energy, the nexus of energy production, fossil fuel energy production, and water, and the impacts on water, whether it's quantity or quality.
Thanks, Janet. I'm just north of you in Pittsburgh, so I'm experiencing much the same, and so I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Nan, do you want to say, I mean, I know you talked a little bit about where you are, but just, if you want to say a little bit here about something that really kind of tugs at your heart.
Yeah, well, logging is really probably the main thing. You fly over Oregon and it's just heartbreaking. It is such a patchwork. There are more bare spaces than there are old trees that are left. So, and with this administration, I'm really, really worried. I remember in the 80s, in the Reagan era, and what happened to the forests here. And so I'm very much wanting to be involved in anything I can to stop that from happening again, and particularly preserving the old growth trees. They're our ancestors. So that's probably my number one priority, I think. And then I think also the rivers here, the Willamette that flows right through the middle of Portland and separates east from west, is probably one of the most polluted rivers in the country. And I grew up on that river. I've grown up in Oregon all my life, and we fished that river with my dad down south. And it's another heartbreak. I mean, the fish are damaged, extra fins and these odd things that are happening from all the pollution in the water. And the same thing with the Columbia River that separates Oregon and Washington, the pollution there. And just the balance that is so off. They're, shooting sea lions that have come up. I mean, the whole connection, they're shooting the sea lions that are coming up and eating the salmon, and the dams on the river, and the pollution in the sea itself, this driving those sea lions upriver. I mean, they're all the things that are connected just to the waterways. That's pretty near and dear to my heart too. And I'd like to do whatever I can there. And Hanford, is farther up the Columbia, and that's one of the, what's the term for the national most polluted sites? What is that called? Superfund. It's a Superfund site that, has taken forever, and it is still so far from being remedied. And it's right on the Columbia River. And so that's something I'd like to be involved in. And then Standing Rock, Native spirituality is near and dear to my heart, and what's happening there, what has happened, and what I'm hearing about, they're trying to go to court, and that's not working very well so far in terms of stopping that pipeline. And so whatever I can do to support the Native peoples here around the Northwest, as well as at Standing Rock, I really would like to do what I can. We had a concert in Bellingham that weekend in December when they were when the vets were leaving to go support the Standing Rock people, and there was a native Lummi man who was right there and boarding the bus to go to Standing Rock, and it was an incredible event, so anyway, I just would like to support them in any way I can as well, and all the tribes, what's happened to their land, and all the broken treaties, and so I guess those would be the main things for me.
Thank you, Nan. That's a short list. Judy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go out of order, other than I wanted to capture Karen and Harriet. So I did not forget you, Judy. And do you want to say, I know you have many passions, but for you to join in here and tell us about your deep yearning and
Sure. Ditto. I think what I'm struck by is that pick anything, including my own backyard, because no matter where we turn, there's concern, and I think that's what has me looking for using the relationships of people on this call, using the relationships in my community to expand and deepen the practice of honoring, bringing awareness, and really bringing witnessing, and then speaking up elsewhere about what I'm witnessing and honoring in whatever ways are good. So it can be everything from forests to rivers to lakes to air. It doesn't really, they're all at risk, and they're all at risk where I live. So it doesn't really matter which one I choose. I choose them all. That's probably what I would say.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, I hear you. No matter where we turn, there's something that is concerning. Tom, are you still with us? I see your ceiling and your wall, but maybe you stepped away from the computer for a minute. Well, so what I'm hearing in all of this, as Judy said, is no matter where we turn. So really what we're here today is to understand what is it about the Earth Ambassadors that calls to you and can support you in your individual community. And part of what, we're talking about what's breaking our hearts, and I hear a lot of feeling and depth of emotion along with these really big projects, big work projects, the logging and the fracking and the clear cut and the sea lions and all of these. And it feels to me like there's this balancing act that has to go on. And I guess I would just open briefly and say on my own behalf that part of what keeps me grounded and balanced in my community is having a network which has really been Radical Joy for Hard Times for me, and also the Earth Ambassadors potentially, because this is deep work. So how do we support each other as we go out into the community? We are, as the environmentalists or as the people who are aware in many ways, carrying the burden for many people if we're leading these ceremonies or we're calling forth people to come. And so I feel like there's an extra responsibility maybe that we take on, and with that comes some other things. So maybe we can do a round of each of Trevi, and I'm going to come back to you, Trevi. I did not mean to leave you out, Trevi, but maybe you could speak to both questions, and we could speak to, and Tom maybe could talk to the first one. But what can the Earth Ambassadors? How can the Earth Ambassadors be for you and support you in your community? And so maybe Trevi, we'll start with you, and then we'll circle around and capture Tom next.
Well, I just as several people said, I just feel so heartbroken so often about so much, and I live in a fracking community, and I'm part of a group that's been fighting a hazardous waste incinerator, and the ash trees are dying, and the hemlocks are dying, and I don't see as many birds as I used to, and it all just breaks my heart. I mean, and I see the world. I see there's a tendency to speak about things like this as if it was all just sort of part of a scientific plan, or it's all science, but it's really emotional, as we've all been sharing. So that was why I created Radical Joy for Hard Times in the beginning, so that we could acknowledge those emotions. Like Judy said, where's the radical joy and where are the hard times, and how can we balance them? And to me, that's the trick of what all of this is how do we balance, so we don't have to avoid the places, but yet we're not just capitulating to our despair. So, and that's what we try and do with Radical Joy for Hard Times, and that's what we want to do with the Earth Ambassadors. And we just, we wanted to be more active from now on, so that there's a real sense of sharing in a way that that we weren't able to do with the experiment. And I think part of that's going to be helped with the Zoom technology, which is infinitely better than the other stuff we were using. And we also have some good ideas, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But as Joanne said, this particular round is about finding out from you what you'd like this to be about. So did I answer your question, Joanne, okay?
Yeah, that was great. I want to say too, for myself, that you really brought up something important, the emotional versus the science. And I don't think I spoke to the first question really much myself, but I am deeply immersed in a Shell petrochemical plant coming to our community. And it's not just the science of it, it's the economics of it. It's this tremendous boon to the region. And I find myself terribly emotional about what's happening. And I don't have a forum really to take that emotion to. Most of the people in the community are working in an activist way. They're working in an educational or legislative way, but there really is not a forum for that emotional component. And so for me, this ambassador network and Radical Joy has offered that support, and that's been important. So Tom, let me swing to you. You missed kind of the first round, but well, we missed you at the tail end of the first round. But just to say that what we were looking for in that first question, is there a particular issue that you're passionate about? And then the second question, which is where we are now, how will the Earth Ambassadors, how do you imagine being part of the Earth Ambassadors supporting you? What is it that you want from being part of this network?
Oh, gee. Yeah, I apologize pulling away. My furnace is broken and I have a person in here. That's why I'm going back and forth. It's not like having a baby though, and he was crying. I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The effort that all of you are taking to just be present in the midst of this type of conversation, it really does. It's actually quite inspiring. Where I come out of this, I suppose it's just maybe some of it is just about my own psychology, personality, why I do it, is one step back, looking at the entire systems and looking and trying to understand how can the practice of radical joy illustrate as well as provide support and comfort to people attempting to connect the dots. As several of you have been saying, the clear cutting, fracking, pollution of our water supplies, the air, all of these things are connected. It is one It is one living reality, and our hearts are in that as well, since we're part of it. It's our lives. We're creatures in that. And so my passion is to listen for the wisdom of Earth ambassadors who might help the Radical Joy community large and the organization to make those connections intelligently for other people, so that we will. So it's an educational piece that really inspires me or moves me. It's the challenge of trying to help people who don't know what to do, who are just hooking in a larger public with the disaster we're living through, and to understand from any point they start how the practice of finding joy in the midst of this pain and connecting ourselves back with the natural universe and each other in communities in which we honor all of the life that is taking place and interdependent. And how do we help people to do that, to get to that insight? Because there are many people who are hearing the news and concerned, they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't know where to go, or they don't have a tradition of being activists for 10 years.
Yeah.
I believe Radical Joy for Hard Times has an opportunity through the wisdom of Earth ambassadors on the ground to figure ways that we can help people make the connection. Give you a very specific example. A project is underway. We'll be developing in the fall. It's already happening now, developing in New York, between a reservoir in New York and New York City, which is the reservoir which has been feeding the water supply of Manhattan. I mean, the largest city in the country, and water supply 110 miles away is feeding that. And we're trying to create an event in which we celebrate the gift of just having water. And it was occurring to me, well, how do we help people who may not connect with that, but the fracking, the clear cutting, the abuse of the land, the habitats, the lands? How can we help any one of those people come together around, let's remember water is life, as the Native American community in Standing Rock is getting that message clear, and it's starting to reverberate. So I'm interested in the breakthroughs that we can provide in messaging. And
I heard a big piece, helping those who don't know what to do. I mean, that's like kind of the heart of what I'm taking from what you're sharing.
I think I should stop there. I'm
Thanks, Tom.
Listening in.
That was so rich just in that one piece. Appreciate. I just want to it's 12:45, and so I imagine, Trevi, we planned on going till about 1 o'clock. So I want to hear from Janet and Nan on what they imagine they can, what they want, or how they could be supported by an Earth Ambassadors Network. And then maybe, Trevi, I'll turn it back over to you to kind of give a sense of how we envision the going forward. And then we'll try to conclude right at 1 o'clock to honor everybody's time commitment. Does that sound good? So Janet, why don't we go to you, and then Nan to you? And this is staying with the question of how can Earth Ambassadors, what would you like from the Earth Ambassadors? If you could pick a couple of things, what would it be?
So I'm unfamiliar, with what exactly Earth Ambassadors could offer, but I can tell from the community and the environmental community as a whole here, there is so much pain in what happens here. There are times when we feel in West Virginia that we live in some alternative spot, that because the politics are crazy, the work, it's just unending. And I find that with many people with whom I work, and I have found in my own life ways to cope with that pain. And I think there is a lack of of avenues for joy. You know, it's a whole lot easier, I think, to get people to come out to a public hearing than it is to a community of support, you know, when it comes to let's get together and celebrate something. So I just feel there's that, and then the people who we haven't reached. For me, it's about winning hearts and minds. And so if there's an avenue for that, because I just don't think people want to get involved in struggle. I think you know, if we can win hearts and minds in a positive way, that for me personally is something that I'm hoping, you know, to find out there ways to do that better, rather than, you know, beat people over the head with the hard reality of some of the really difficult work we're facing here. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense, Janet. It really,
Lots and lots of sense.
it's really right there. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Nan.
Well, it just strikes me, I'm just thinking as I'm listening, you know, this time in the midst of the horror of all these appointments and all the threats and all the things that are happening in this administration, you know, the groundswell that is rising. I mean, how many millions at the Women's March? You know, this, in a way, it's kind of a prime opportunity. People are motivated. People are frightened. People are ready.
Oops.
Partly I'm just thinking how to get, you know, I went to Idaho and taught at a women's music camp. And there are already people, total activists, and they take care of they have, I think, 60 acres. And it was stunning. And it was right on the day of the Global Earth Exchange that I happened to be there. So we did a ceremony around this old tree that had been girdled and was dying, was their grandfather tree. And they had not heard of Radical Joy, you know, and I'm just thinking partly how to get the word out. And then, Tom, I'm one of those people who I want the connections. I'm not knowing exactly who. I've done my own thing with the land, and when I've gone to clear cuts and sung and prayed and drummed. And but I'm wanting connection with organizations and other people who share the same heart and passion around what can we do actively. I can cry and drum and sing and do those things, but I want to connect with people who actually have a wider knowledge base than I do about what we can do legally, you know, just what all the avenues are to become more active as with both Rad Joy and as an Earth Ambassador, and also just with whatever local organizations. And maybe I need to pick Judy's brain some more about who's available around here. In fact, for sure I do. Yeah. But so I guess I just am wanting to know what can I do and how can I do it, because I'm on board. I'm
right
here.
Thanks, Nan. Trevi, I'm going to turn it back over to you. It's about 10 to 1, so I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, so we've been talking about how to renovate revitalize the Earth Ambassadors, and part of what we've come up with had a lot to do with input from Judy, and we haven't fine-tuned it yet because we wanted to do that on this call and hearing about what people would like. And I've been taking lots of notes because I've been getting lots of ideas and a really great understanding from what everybody has said. So what we have in mind is several things. We have in mind maybe a few conference calls like this. We don't know how many, you know, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's once every 2 weeks, maybe it's 3 times a year. And not everybody would have to attend. You can attend when you want. And it would be an opportunity for the Earth Ambassadors to share what their concerns are, what their ideas are, what's happening, ask questions of one another, like what worked for you under such and such a circumstance. We might also have, as we did with the previous Earth Ambassadors, we might have people from our Radical Joy for Hard Times Council of Advisors or other people who are renowned in their fields or who have a special kind of expertise in some particular aspect of making beauty for wounded places, who would come and talk and answer questions. We would love to. We want to create a Facebook page, a private Facebook group, rather than not an open page for the Earth Ambassadors, so you can continue to share with one another photos and ideas, videos on that way. And what we would love to do, and just don't have the money for it yet, is to create a special kind of segment of our Radical Joy for Hard Times website. And I've seen it in other places, where the Earth Ambassadors could have a password and could check in, and there could be a really vibrant, active way of sharing that way, which would be better, I think, than Facebook or anything else. We also just want to know how we can support you in your local activities, and to recognize you for the work that you're already doing, and to put you in touch with one another, to supply things, if we can, that would make it easier for you to do the practices, as like Harriet was saying, the stuff that comes up on an impromptu basis. You know, how can we help you? How can we support you in doing that? Helping you to get the word out, helping to publicize it, supplying materials, giving you logos, or whatever, with Radical Joy for Hard Times. And then, oh yes, and then another idea was that we would offer Radical Joy for Hard Times Global Earth Exchange T-shirts, or other kinds of T-shirts, and other materials. Like, we're getting ready to publish a book called 101 Ways to Make Guerrilla Beauty, at cost plus postage for the Earth Ambassadors. So you could buy several of them at once to distribute to your community. Joanne, am I forgetting something?
No, but I had a thought, and I want to add this in as something for everybody to consider. One of the things that I love about the Earth Ambassadors and community, Nan, you talked about you want to meet people in community, and Janet talked about, there's people that we haven't reached. Well, one of the ways that is so powerful for me is actually to meet each of you and to hear about your communities. And I'm wondering if one of the things that we can do for our going forward gatherings is each of us prepare a little, this is my community, or this is who we are, or this is who I am, or this is the Appalachia pipeline project that has really just been, tearing me apart. Or Nan could share a little, maybe with 2 or 3 pictures, because part of what I really thrive on is the personal connection, and getting to know Janet and Nan and Tom and Trebby and Harriet. And because when I'm out there in the land and I'm thinking about what Nan did in the rivers, or I'm often thinking about West Virginia, because you're right there, and I've been in touch with people from West Virginia. It really brings the world closer to me. I feel connected to all of you, and I need that. I mean, I love that, there's all these millions of people out there, but when I know your name, when I know it's a Janet or a Nan, or it's a Karen or a Harriet, that lights me up. I really, and it gives me courage, and it gives me some focus and strength. So that's part of this personal touch for me that I would add as important for the Earth Ambassadors.
Yeah, great, good, very good. I love that idea. And I just found it very touching, and also engaging, when we started out and people were just talking about the problems / heartbreaks in their area. So I think that'd be a fantastic thing to introduce our communities. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of like animates the community, I
Yeah,
mean,
definitely.
So here is the Willamette River, and or the Columbia River, and just bring the river into our group, or bring the mountain top, and actually animate that part of nature right as part of us here.
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, so and we'll be developing this as we go along. We would expect Earth ambassadors to hold a global Earth exchange, and to call it that. And we're working out ways of how we can help you to boost membership in your community, and you help boost membership in our community. So those are other aspects of what we want to do with the Earth Exchange. And I'm just on the technological level, I'm so happy that we discovered Zoom, because when we had our previous calls, we did it on a thing called WebEx, and we would spend, honest to goodness, the first 10 or 15 minutes like, can you hear me? Well, and then me calling up the organization, panic, and Judy trying to soothe things, and it was horrendous. So we've solved that. Hooray, hooray. Yay. So Joanne, do you want to tell us how we envision the next step after this?
Yeah, I think what Chubby and I had just kind of brainstormed a little bit at the next step would maybe actually just kind of digest this gathering here today and put some ideas down on paper. Actually put together something and send you an email that kind of collates and combines the thoughts and ideas, and try to distill it into something about what the design might look like for the year. Keeping in mind that we would like this to be a co-creation, so that I think what we're thinking is to put something out as an offering for some contribution and feedback from each of you, that if you really think, well, 6 times a year is not as much as I would like to gather. So that's what we'd like to hear. So I think the next step would be to look for communication from us in probably the next week or two, Trevi. I'm not sure what our time frame is. Mm-hmm. And that we'll go forward and kind of create this together. Does anybody, so we've got just about a minute left until 1:00, and does anybody have something that they want to share or say before we close today? Is there somebody that has something burning that they want to say before we close today?
Well, I would just like to thank you. I mean, I can't even tell you what that meant when Judy brought the Global Youth Exchange out onto the land, where I had just been demoralized. Yeah. And ever since then, even just the term, Trevi, I come back to that often. Whenever there's a heartbreak, I come back to that. And so to have a place like this to where I know your hearts are in the same place and or similar places, and it means the world, literally. Right. So a big thank you and heartfelt gratitude for what you've been doing and allowing me to join you.
Yeah, thank you, Jan, or Nan. Janet, do you want to say a closing word before we leave today? You don't have to. I'm just inviting you, and you're on mute. Okay.
No, I agree. I'm very happy to have been a part of this conversation, and I want to share this with my former colleagues at OVEC.
Yeah.
And so that it may not be me, but it may be one of them who would be joining on calls in the future. But I wanted to explore this as well for myself.
Great.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Tom, do you want to say a one-word wrap-up?
Thank you for taking time being here. I will catch up more listening to Joanne Trevi.
I know you had your furnace, so Trevi, back to you. I think
so we've recorded the meeting, and I will send it out to everybody, and including those who couldn't make it and would have liked to. And as Joanne said, we'll send you an initial proposal in the next week, an initial offering. So thank you all so much for coming and for being authentic and honest and heartfelt about the places that you love and how you're hurting as a result of what's happening to them, and how you're seeking joy for ourselves and for these places.
Yeah.
And Joanne, thanks. It's been great doing this with you as always.
Bye, Trevi and Tom and Janet and Nan.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Blessings.
Bye.